happen. Oh.
We are live. Welcome everybody to Still Comfy with Jules and Nat. Today we are talking about Thelma and Louise. I'm Julia Washington, your host of Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous, where we analyze pop culture through the lens of race or gender and sometimes both. I am joined by Natalie Katona.
Hi, I'm Natalie Katona, host of To All the Men I've Tolerated Before, a podcast where every Thursday you get to hear my thoughts on everyday misogyny.
So, what perfect movie that we should talk about than
Uh-huh.
Thelma and Louise?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
mostly because Louise is tired, like all
Yeah.
of us.
Yeah. So let's do a quick, because this movie is 21 years old. So let's do
21
a
years old.
quick summary for everybody who maybe haven't seen it in a while or has no idea what we're talking about. Thelma and Louise, here's the summary. Two best friends set out on it. Oh, P.S. This is from Google, and I've got a bone to pick. Here we go.
Oh,
Two best
God.
friends set out on an adventure, but soon turns around to a terrifying escape from being hunted by the police as these two girls escape for the crimes they committed. Girls, because they're not
Grown
pushing
women.
40 or anything. It's
Right.
fine.
It's fine.
Anyway, this movie did receive 6 Academy Award nominations and one for Best Original Screenplay. Ridley Scott was nominated for Best Director, and both Susan Sarandon and Gina Davis were nominated for Best Actress. I do want to give this quick note about what Rolling Stone said about the movie in 1991. Call it a comedy of shocking gravity. Thelma and Louise begins like an episode of I Love Lucy and ends with the impact of Easy Rider. It's a bumpy path between those points, and director Ridley Scott and first time screenwriter Callie Curry
Sure.
don't sure don't cushion the ride. The film switches moods violently and sometimes it jerks your chain. But this this is movie dynamite, detonated by award caliber performance from Gina Davis and Susan Sarandon in the title roles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If by roller coaster they mean that in the 90s every movie was too long and we could have done with some editing.
This movie was only like an hour and 45 minutes.
No, it wasn't. It was 2 hours because I checked because I believe that every movie should be a cool 90 minutes.
Oh, I guess I see. I didn't feel like it was too long. So why don't you start with, actually, I don't know this answer. Was this the first time you've seen Thelma and Louise?
This was the first time I watched Thelma and Louise all the way through and not just clips of Thelma and Louise from VH1's We Love the 90s.
Nice.
I'm really mad that I was a child during VH1's I Love the 90s because I would have killed on that show.
Yeah.
I would have killed on I Love the 2000s, I Love the 70s, I Love the 80s. I would have fucking killed on those shows, but instead I was a child. So VH1, if you ever want to make a comeback.
Yeah. Let's do it. Okay, so as an adult, for the first time watching it all the way through and not just clips from VH1's I Love the 90s, tell me what you thought.
First off, Brad Pitt was ugly when he was younger.
I so don't agree.
My mother agreed because she called yesterday, right? I think in the middle or maybe towards the end of me watching it. And I was like, young Brad Pitt is scrawny and he has a shitty face. And she's like, yeah,
I don't agree.
he has a shitty face and he's scrawny. And he is not the Achilles Brad Pitt that I knew him to be for my entire adolescence. Or, so I wrote down on my notes, I will now choose to believe and rewrite history that Legends of the Fall is what actually made Brad Pitt a sex symbol and not this movie.
Uh, it did Thelma and Louise make Brad Pitt a sex symbol?
That's what I Love the 90s from VH1 said. Oh,
Oh,
Penelope's gonna press buttons to make noises.
all right, Penelope, this time you can't kick me out of the broadcast because it's mine.
We'll just crater her like a baby, like my sister tried to.
Yes. So I bet, you know what I bet? I bet it's because it's that scene when they finally, when Gina finally gets, when Thelma finally gets done, right?
Thelma's first orgasm.
I feel like that's probably the scene that everyone's because that scene, that opening of that scene is kind of steamy. So that's probably what it was.
This movie really hit home that I myself am the Louise. Like you, I think that everyone like prays that they are the Thelma in the friendship because they get to fuck Brad Pitt and like get wild. I am the Louise. I am the one who is constantly looking at you going, that man ain't shit. And then when he steals our stuff, I'm like, oh, if only someone would have told you that he was mediocre. And then and then I am also the one who is like watching men harass you at a bar and you giggling at it and being like, that's harassment.
Oh
We
no,
did
no, Louise, you're just so jaded from waiting tables all those years.
also,
No, Louise is not jaded. She's just very well in tuned with human behavior.
and honestly, more people should have listened to her because I wrote down multiple times, Louise, it hasn't even gotten better. Like, it hasn't even gotten better. When she's like, we don't live in the type of world that believes women about what they go through. I was like, we still don't. We
You
still
know
don't.
what? You know what? The Atlantic did an article that said that basically was like this movie has aged really well, and
It
that's
has.
actually not a good thing because that just
Correct.
means that we haven't done anything
We have
in the
not
last
been.
and this article came out at its 25th anniversary. And basically saying like we haven't done anything in 25 years to improve because that scene where Thelma's like, we got to go to the police. We got to tell the police. The police will understand. And da, da, da. And Louise is like, no,
No,
that
that's
still
not what they
happens.
do.
The police, like, the way we see these cases handled in the news, it still attacks women. It still makes women out to be the bad guy. It still makes it out as, she did something to deserve it. She was egging
Mhm.
him on because, Louise flat out says, everyone's going to be, what are they going to say? You were in there hugging on him and kissing on him and dancing real close. Like, what are they going to do? Like,
What are they
you
gonna do?
basically, yeah,
What is the man's name who we murder?
Harlan.
Harlan. I would like to point out that police and FBI put on a lot of effort to avenge the murder of a man named Harlan who was like shot down at a bar. I'm like, I also don't feel like that's realistic.
Well, and then the waitress at the bar is like, "Do you ask his wife?" Because he
Feminist
steps out on her
icon.
all the time.
Feminist icon, that waitress, because like she brings the vibe of the women's restroom out to the world. So
Uh-huh.
she sidles up to that cop and he's like, well, you
Harvey
saw him
Keitel.
come out
Mhm.
with two women, and she's like, they're not the murdering type. And that's what we always say, ladies. Like, if we watch some misogynist walk out into the parking lot with two women and he don't come back, we're just like, they seem like the nicest, they tipped me real well, they prayed before their meal. Like, no, at no point do we just go, you know what, maybe they did do it. No, that's not girl code. That woman understood girl code.
She knew it was up, and honestly, they weren't the murdering type
They weren't.
until somebody tried to rape Thelma. Sorry, content warning.
Oh my God. Yeah. And then for whatever reason, probably because I've only seen clips from VH1, I thought they murdered her useless husband. I thought it was a Earl had to die situation.
No. Mm-mm. Which brings me to my next question. Which man was more trash, Harlan or Hal?
They were all no, number one, Jimmy was not trash.
I was
I
gonna
am
say, don't you,
Stan Jimmy.
don't you, don't you dare drag
Jimmy
Jimmy's name through the
Jimmy's
mud.
a hero.
Jimmy's a fucking hero.
Jimmy's the only man who's allowed to use the hashtag not all men.
Yeah.
Okay. He's the only one that put in the work to use the hashtag. My first note about the husband, Daryl, was I love that men trap us
Oh,
into
I wrote
marrying.
Hal.
I think it's Daryl.
Daryl. Go ahead,
Okay.
keep talking.
I go, I love that men trick us into marrying them just to then be so put out by our mere existence. Like, what was Thelma doing? She was just in the kitchen. She was
Well,
just
here's the thing. She said
breathing.
she tells JD, played by Brad Pitt, that they were married she was married at 18 and they dated for 4 years before that. Oh yeah,
Oh,
Daryl. So you were 14 years old.
when you met the love of your life.
Put that shit in air quotes because there's no fucking way. There's no fucking way.
I would like more context on how old Daryl was when he started grooming Thelma. I would just like more context.
Yeah, because here's the thing. Here's the thing. Daryl's
Also,
gross.
we need to remind the listeners that if you're live, we can't see that you're live, but we would love to tell you hello. So make sure you comment.
Oh yeah, you have to comment. We're using a third-party streaming app, so we don't know that you're here until you
And
tell
it
us
is
you're
up
here.
right above my head.
Mm-hmm. Um, the whole time Daryl is trash, and he's so awful. And then like she just, it might be too early to get into this, but like my favorite part of the movie is Thelma's evolution. Because in the opening scene, not the opening scene, when they're at the bar before the big thing happens, and
Mm-hmm.
Harlan comes over, he's like, "Hey, ladies, how y'all doing tonight?" And Louise is like, "We're fine, thanks." And Thelma's like, "Oh, I'm just going out, and I haven't been out. My husband this, and Louise is so
It was
mad
the
at her
first time
boyfriend
Thelma had
that, and da
ever
da
been
da."
in a restaurant.
For real. And then by the end of the movie, she's like, "You know what? Fuck this shit. I get it now.
I think
She even said, I'm awake and it feels great."
I'm awake and it feels great. And I think I'm going to hold up a gun to a cop and put him in his trunk. I was like, Thelma, Thelma. I will have to say that good on Louise and good on Susan Sarandon for continuing to support women throughout the entire 2 hour movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because after the Brad Pitt, no, it was before the Brad Pitt fiasco. At some point, I was like, I would have had to cut Thelma loose. I would have had to go to Mexico by myself.
Even though she is your BFF forever?
You know what? I don't even know if that was established. Okay. They were going on a weekend trip because Louise had a contact for a cabin. And we've all been there. We've all been on a trip with people that we barely know because
Oh,
someone
see,
has a cabin for free.
there were a lot of references throughout the movie that indicated to me that they had been really good friends for a long time.
I'm sure that they had been good friends for a good time. Number one, my best friend would tell me, cut me loose if that's how I'm acting. If you need to I texted her in the middle of this movie. And I was like, I'm watching Thelma and Louise for the first time. And I need you to know that if we murdered a rapist, we would handle it way better. Cool as a cucumber. We wouldn't even have given a fuck because we're dead inside. And she's
Yeah.
like, 100%. I go, we would have just done it. Been like, cool, I guess that's what happened. Got into the car and be like, I guess we're going to Mexico. And then we would put on like Now's Greatest Hits 14. And we would have just rode into the sunset, forgetting that man's name, forgetting that we even did it. Like, or my favorite plot device could be maybe you should at least try to tell the police because they were the only two out there. So they could have said any lie. They could
Yeah.
have said that he lunged for her again or whatever. Self-defense, I heard, gets you a lot.
And that was Thelma's argument. Like, if we, like, we were the only two out there, we could say whatever. Like, she
Yeah.
basically says that to Louise, and Louise says no, which brings us to the point where something happened in Texas to Louise, and she didn't want to talk about it, but Texas gets brought up again. It's almost like it's another character in the movie because they're in Oklahoma, and she's like, "You got to figure out how to get us to Mexico without driving through Texas." And Thelma's like, "I'm sorry, do you not know geography? Because that's not possible."
And honestly, I wouldn't have. So I would have been like, what do you mean we can't do it? What do you mean? Because I have to imagine that you would have to go to the states that are above Texas, swing into California,
So you
and
can
then hit
go
Mexico.
you can go to Louisiana on one side, or what's on the other side of Texas? I looked it up earlier because I was like, wait a minute. I
But you would
feel
have to
like,
circumvent that entire top portion of the state by touching
yeah,
other
because
states.
the shape of Texas too, the way
Yes.
Texas is shaped is like even after you get out of Oklahoma to get like you'd have to go up and around, right? So you either have to go back into Arkansas, down into Louisiana. There's no way. You'd have to go all the way to the west to New
All the way.
Mexico.
You'd have to go all the way.
Yeah.
And I understand that. I understand that Louise has also lost her entire faith in humanity and the law and the government. And I'm like, same. I mean, I guess I too. And then like when Mexico didn't become an option, I was like, y'all just change your entire projection and go to Canada. They don't even think you can get
Throw
there.
them off the
Just
set.
go north.
Mm-hmm.
Just go north. Go straight a little bit and then just go north, and then they're confused because they're convinced that you've only been going south
To Mexico.
to Mexico.
Yeah. Damn JD is the one who gave him away.
Again, fuck Brad Pitt in this movie. He wasn't even good looking. He didn't even fill out those jeans. He had like, for one
Oh.
thing, at some point I was like, he looked like he doesn't have a snarl tooth, but he looks like he has a snarl tooth. Like one day he will have a snarl tooth. And I'm like, well, there it is. I'm
I
like, what the
I
hell?
listen, I don't agree. So if you're listening out there, do you agree with Natalie
I wouldn't have slept with
or Brad
Thelma and
Pitt?
Louise, Brad Pitt. I would sleep with Brad Pitt today. I would love to trip over Brad Pitt today trying to make a phone call. I would love I would love
My favorite was when he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm my parole officer," and she's like, "Oh my god, are you a criminal?" And he's like, "No, I'm not a criminal. I just did some robbing."
anymore.
And then you think it's okay to leave $6,700 on the bedside table when somebody just told you that he's like literally knocked over every kind of convenience store from here to wherever he's from.
That's what I wrote down. I go, Thelma, he literally tells you that he robs people and then he's gonna rob you
And
because
they
that's what he said.
foreshadow that with the ring when he's like, "Oh, you're at the advantage." When they're playing that hand game, he's like, "Let's just remove that real quick." He totally stole her ring.
Not great. Not great. Um Also, I love that the cops like knew him. They were like, "Come on, JD, sit down, tell us about Mexico." And then I almost did believe the like main cop when he was like, "I can make this better for you. You just have to start cooperating." And I was like, "This would be the time to
Yeah.
strike a deal if you're going to strike a deal."
Mhm.
Because part of the advantage of no one taking women seriously is that they will write a story in their head that we accidentally murdered someone,
Mhm.
and then we were so flustered that we got into our car and we drove away from it, and then we got even more flustered so we accidentally robbed a gas station. So, and like you can play that to your advantage if you're next to an old dude who may or may not arrest you and you're just like, you know, I just got so confused. I just got so confused.
Especially if you look innocent and pretty
Yeah,
like they did.
right.
Yeah.
Hi, Mario. Yeah, if you're Gina Davis pretty, you can get away with anything, including shooting some guy down in a parking lot.
Here's another favorite. I just love this movie so hard. They describe Gina Davis's character as being 5'10". She's 6 feet tall in real
She's
life.
so fucking tall.
So the whole time I'm like, oh my God, she's never actually standing next to anybody in this entire movie. They
But
have her staged in a way where she's never directly next to somebody. That was genius.
but she's always looming over Susan Sarandon. I was like,
Yeah.
this almost makes it worse because
Oh.
like because she is so tall, and I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to offset it. Like they did the same thing with Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey, because it turns out that Brad Pitt and Patrick Swayze aren't 7 foot tall, like the movies would have us believe.
Right.
So then you have to like be like, well, ladies can't be taller than the leading man, and then you gotta offset it. But I was like, she literally looks like she's looming over Louise the entire movie.
See, I didn't get the but
She's
maybe because I've been
she's
watching
so,
this movie for 20 years. Maybe
and I don't think that A
21
League of
years.
Their Own, for some reason, A League of Their Own, and maybe it's because Tom Hanks is almost as tall as Gina Davis or taller. A League of Their Own, you hardly notice her height. You
Yeah.
hardly notice it. But this movie, I was like, look how fucking tall Gina Davis
Yeah,
is.
because in A League of Their Own, they have Kit in heels and things like that, and the
Mhm.
girls in other heels and stuff. And she's the catcher, so she's always in the squat
Right, and
position.
she's
So that
always
changes it
fine.
a little bit too in the distances.
Catching like this.
Yeah. She knows better. She knows not to catch the ball like that. But in Thelma and Louise, because they're in cowboy boots. So she's in flats, and then
Mm-hmm.
Louise is in cowboy boots, which don't really have a lot of heel to them.
Right.
I mean, they have a heel, but not the
But
same.
they
I don't
don't.
know.
Can we talk? I want to go back to Louise and what a
Mhm.
drag it is to be
Sorry,
the
keep going.
friend who already knows. So, like, you're Louise, and you've got
Mhm.
this boyfriend. He's Jimmy. You're pretty sure he's mediocre, but you like wake up every day knowing that. You wake up every day knowing like Jimmy may or may not call today. He's pretty mediocre. This, that, and the other. And then you're looking at your friend Thelma. It is a drag being a friend, watching their friends in like marriages that aren't abusive enough that you can like call a hotline about it, but you're just like watching it, and it's like, what if you got to freely enjoy yourself as an adult woman, which is something clearly Thelma wasn't getting to do because every time she breathed, Daryl yelled. And like even
Mhm.
the way like she's just wrapped up in that bathrobe and she's like, Daryl, I just thought maybe you would like some tea. He's mad at her for asking if he wants tea. He's just like, I'm sorry, Daryl, if you need 2 hours to make yourself into a human being before you have to go to work, wake up 2 hours earlier. Like, I don't understand why you're griping at all of us. And then there's Louise, and you call your friend and you're like, I'm ready for hot girl shit. How about you? And
Mhm.
it's a drag. It is a drag to hear your friends go, I don't know. I haven't heard, I haven't even asked my husband yet. I am that bitch who tells you, like, since when do we ask men anything, let alone permission? They don't know nothing.
But to Thelma's credit, she goes anyway.
Yes, she goes anyways. But it's still, but then you put her in a car with Thelma, and it's gonna be fun. We got good tunes in the car, and we're going, to the woods. We have a net and a lantern to indicate we're camping. And then you get to a bar, and your friend Thelma all of a sudden gets into like hot girl season, and like then she completely starts ignoring you for the next mediocre man that approaches the table, and you're just like, it is a really fucking goddamn drag being me because you're clearly not getting what you want from your marriage, so now we're just going to get it from a guy named Harlan, and I have to spend my evening babysitting you because you don't know that this Harlan guy is clearly a creep. And then she's just sitting there. She's like, I guess I'll have a margarita. And she's like sipping her margarita. They left those drinks unattended. I was like, that's a big 2000s.
I
No,
know, I
no.
saw that. I was like, oh, the joys of 1991, I
Right.
guess.
That's a big 2000s. No, no. You get a cup with a lid. You take it
Yeah.
to the dance floor. And I couldn't help but think, I was like, God, it is. It is just a drag to be socializing the way that Louise is forced to socialize because she, quote unquote, knows better. It's like when we all woke up to capitalism during the pandemic, but then you went to your boss and he still wanted to play by capitalism rules, and
Mm.
you're like, fucker, I'm onto your game.
Yeah.
Like, that's Louise with skeezy men who are clearly skeezy from the jump, but Thelma just doesn't have the radar for it. She's like, oh, he's not good, Thelma. And she's like, I want to dance. I want to have some fun. I want to take some whiskey with a Coke back and I'm
Not
gonna
just
do
any
this.
whiskey, wild
I
turkey,
want some
which
wild
is
turkey.
like the most disgusting
It's so gross.
whiskey of all time. It's
It's so
cheap as fuck.
cheap as fuck.
Okay, so I will say this in Thelma's defense, she was groomed at 14, married 18, so she's not as emotionally evolved as Louise. She's, controlled, and this is such a strong, this is so typical. This we see this a lot, and I don't know about in the Midwest, but where I am, the Midwest of California, I see it a lot where a
Mhm.
lot of women, they have, oh, we've been together since high school and aren't we so in love? And their husbands are just trash. And this is a reoccurring theme. And I think that's why Thelma and Louise holds up so well because this type of narrative still exists and it's still accepted. It
Right.
is still accepted to be in love with your soulmate at 14, get married at 18, be completely naive about the world and let your husband control everything while he's also controlling you and treating you like garbage.
Yeah. And I'm saying that that is why it's a drag to be the person. I tell it to my therapist all the time. I'm like, you know how last week I said it's really hard being the coolest person in the room? It's also really hard to be the most healed person in the room. And unfortunately, Louise had to heal through a lot of shit that a lot of women do. But once you heal from that shit, you do have a whole new perspective
Mhm.
on the world and how it treats women and what happens when women are victims and all of it. So for me, that's to all the men I've tolerated before. What have I done for a year? I've grieved, I've reflected, I've thought deeply, I've met like minded people. And then you go out into the fucking actual Midwest and you're looking at people and you're like, that's how you're going to be treated. That's how you're, just because he got you a trinket and put a ring
Yeah.
on it, you're going to be
Yeah.
undervalued every day in your home. Every day in your home. It's 2022.
Yeah, well, and it's a lot of like that mentality or that you haven't we a lot of folks haven't grown from that mentality. I see that all the time with it, and I think we've had this conversation before, like when women still sort of uphold the patriarchy
Yeah.
and buy into it and
When
don't
they're
really
the
see.
foundation of it, and you're like, what are
Yeah,
you
and it's
doing?
kinda like, that we don't have to exist this way, like, you're playing into the game, and it's frustrating, and that's hard too, but what I loved about Thelma and Louise is, while to your point, Louise is probably like, "This is hard," I appreciate, though, that she did stick with her friend's evolution because it is really easy to be like, "Okay, you're not ready, we're not in the same place, I'm
Hmm.
out, I'm
Yeah.
out."
And luckily, through robbing a convenience store, Thelma gets with it. But then also, but then like, it still was such like a like at some point I really was in Louise's shoes and I had to think with my open, smart, healed brain and I was like this girl is a liability. I could get to Mexico. I could be living the life that I want to live or I don't want to live, but I've shot a man. And this girl is a liability. And we're in the year of our Lord and Savior 2022. The apocalypse is nigh. So we all have to start making those lists. And it's like, who's a liability and who isn't? Because the zombies be coming, or the plague, or the button with the big booms, just like any of it. And I look at Penelope sometimes and I'm like, you won't even get into this fucking cat carrier. And one day I might have to board a motherfucking train with you to try and get us out of this country. And you're just sitting here being salty. And I have to think about that every day. And at some point I was like my logic Capricorn kicked in and I was like, Thelma's a liability, Louise, you gotta cut her loose. And take Jimmy to Mexico with you. Because let me tell you, ladies, if you call a man or if you text him on your phone, you're like, I did something, it was bad, and I need money, and he doesn't just go, okay, how much? And he doesn't ask you any stupid follow up questions like, well, what did you do? How bad is it? Is it truly that bad? Are you sure you're just not being anxious? Then he's not the motherfucking one. He's not the motherfucking one. When you get the phone call that says, I did something, it is bad, I need money, you will never hear from me again, the only acceptable answer is okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, like, don't hate on like, you're not hating on Jimmy right now, but you're earlier, it's like because he does pull through, he might in the early part of the movie, they're just, like, they're mad at each other. We don't know why they're fighting, we don't know why he and Louise are having a riff, but he fucking pulls through for her in a way that it's just, like, unconditional because it's almost like he knows and understands, like, he's not getting this money back. He probably is never gonna see her again, but he's making a last ditch effort and he's supporting her through it and loving her through it anyway.
Well, and then I also wrote down, I was like, Louise. I don't even think I was talking to Louise at that point because I don't know her mama. I was talking to everybody that I know, and I was like, you don't call your man for your getaway money. No, men be reckless. I go, you call your mom, your unhinged aunt. Like, we know who we call when we got to have a getaway car and getaway money. And it's not our man, it's our mom or our unhinged aunties. Because what I have learned as I get older is that they have lived through some shit and they won't ask questions. They'll be like,
Unless,
okay.
unless it's my mom.
No, not over there on Natalie's mama's side of things. On Natalie's mama's side of things, we send money, we ask questions later, and we hope to hear from you next Christmas.
Not ours, not ours. They do not
Like,
do that. That's the kind of mom I am, though. I'm like, it's like, I need money. Okay, how much? What is this enough? Am I enabling? I don't know. But here's the thing, it's really shitty to justify why you need money.
it is.
Like, don't put people through that. You
You're
don't know
not
what's
fault.
going on in their life.
You're not
Just know they
faulty
need.
for taking one more rapist off the streets. Like,
Right? Like, come on. And the audacity of this man who's when she's defending herself and he's like, "Don't you talk to me that way. I'm sorry. You are going to do something that should be very intimate and personal and loving in
yeah,
a very aggressive way.
in a parking
You don't
lot.
get to talk to her that way."
The audacity of men. The audacity. Um,
That's our first still comfy merch. The audacity of men.
the audacity. Um, because I will say that what I appreciated about the triggering scene is that for someone who hasn't lived through anything like that, that is what I imagine it to be. I
Mm.
imagine it to be you were hanging out with someone you knew, and all of a sudden a flip switched in their head, and they got volatile and they turned ugly on you. And it didn't matter what you said or what you did, if they're stronger, bigger, or honestly will just hit you first, then they're going to get the upper hand. And unfortunately, when it comes to mental and emotional games that will be played in my um, relationships, that is how it goes. It
Mhm.
goes, Natalie tries to assert herself and be like, hi, over here, I'm strong and I'm my own person. And then the person who feels fragile about that has to get the upper hand mentally, emotionally.
Mhm.
Um, and luckily, I've never been in a physical situation like that. But when I think about all of the things that we've talked about on To All the Men I've Tolerated before, the more that I go, okay, so in the 90s, we had to concentrate because I feel like assault was a big plot point in the 90s, but as like
Mhm.
a negative plot point, not like in the sexy way that Game of Thrones tries to throw it off, like, hey, we took someone without their permission again. Hey,
So,
hey.
still icky.
But then we gave her dragons. Like,
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's still icky
it's icky.
regardless of century.
It's icky. It is the year of our Lord and Savior 2022. So in the 90s, I truly feel like the only way that we could get across that women are treated badly in our society and culture is by hitting and assaulting them.
Mhm.
And then that would leak into the 2000s with our lovely PSAs of like, don't leave your drinks unattended.
Right.
Don't be walking at dark. Why are you walking at dark?
Put your keys
Like,
between your
put your
fingers,
keys between your
walk in
fingers.
numbers.
Because we had lived through the 90s media
Mhm.
of what do women do in movies? They get hit. And then in now in the upper 20s, I feel like abusers are just so sneaky about it now.
Yeah.
And then we have to start portraying like, okay, so what does it look like when someone gets in your head and starts fucking messing around with you? Like, what is it like the gaslighting and the manipulation and the narcissism that women are going through in their relationships? Like, it's all partnered. It all started in the 90s with Thelma and Louise,
Mhm.
and every line that Thelma or that Louise says in this movie has not budged 1 millimeter
Right.
when she was saying it in the 90s.
Right. Well, and to your point, I think, in the 90s, we were in a position to actually start telling those stories, but we were telling them in a way that was shocking. And
Mhm.
then over time, because the more the stories are being told, the more nuanced they can get because now the groundwork's been laid. Now the path has been paved and we can start having more of that in-depth conversation. What are the nuances? What does this look like when somebody does play your head games? Because I'm pretty sure Daryl was playing head games with Louise her
Correct.
entire life. That just would have not been as easily understood until we start with the violence and then work our way backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we are now, I think, with the work our way backwards portion of it, where we can get into that point of like, here's like the psychology behind it, because now we have studies, now we have
Mm-hmm.
these conversations, now people do feel more comfortable and confident coming forward and speaking about their experiences. And then how do we translate that into a version of art?
And I do get that scene with Jimmy, the last scene with Jimmy and Louise, when he
Mm-hmm.
comes and he brings the money and you find out that he was going to marry her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, he might not be the best guy, but he is the guy that loves you the best or whatever. And you're just sitting there and you're like, well, Louise, I've been there too. I've been there too, when you're looking at the fool and you're trying to suss it out. And you're
Mm-hmm.
like, well, do you love me? Is this a mind game? Is this just some power play because someone before me made you feel fragile? Did I make you feel fragile? And now you got to take me down one? Because I've been in the take me down one relationship too. And for all of that to come out and for Louise to not have the resources to actually heal in the way where she, like, and Susan Sarandon does a great job of
Yeah.
flipping that switch in that scene too, when she actually realizes, oh, he wasn't running around on me. He wasn't staying away from me because he's no good. Like, he literally, I think, what is he, a truck driver or something? Like,
He's a
he has a job.
musician. He's a
Oh, he's a musician.
musician.
There
Mm-hmm.
we go. No wonder I'm taking his side. He's a musician, but he's got to be out on the road. So the moment, you can see it on Susan Sarandon's face when Louise flips the script in her head and she goes, fuck, Jimmy's loved me all along and he loved
Mm-hmm.
me the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that part of the story is important to tell too, because so many, me personally, and so many women I know, we don't know how to tell anymore. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we've been ran around, abused, gaslit, all manipulated into situations we want to be manipulated in, all of it, to the point where it's really fucking hard to tell anymore.
Well, and we're not conditioned as women to just be upfront about something. If
Hmm.
something's bothering me, I don't have the well, that's not true. I have the confidence to be like, what the fuck is wrong with, like, what is going on?
Hmm.
Calling out kind of stuff. But that's just not what our society
No,
supports and encourages. So, Louise probably didn't feel like she could say, Jimmy, what is going on? Like, I'm feeling insecure in our relationship. And like, turns out if she had said that, it probably would have been received, which for 1991 is kind of a big deal because we don't have that type of
no.
representation until, the last 5 years. We're starting to see stuff like that. Not even the last 3 years, maybe. We're starting to see stuff like that where men are being vulnerable, are being loving, represented through pop culture. It's still in the minority, but guys like Jimmy aren't, we don't see them a lot.
That's why, and I know we're not talking about it. That's why in season 3, I started feeling bad for Paxton. Is that his name? The good looking one that's
Yeah,
not
the
the ugly,
hottie.
annoying one?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. I started feeling bad for Paxton because clearly Paxton lived a life before Debbie.
Mhm.
And like, every time Paxton walked into a room, whether he opened his goddamn mouth or not, someone would be the first to jump on him and be like, he's a bad guy. He'll fuck you and dump you. And like, he did it. He also sat in a room and apologized for hours on end to every
Mhm.
woman that he did it to. But I think the brilliant thing with that character, Paxton, is that you see him be so emotional about that. To be
Yeah.
like, well, how long am I going to have to live that down? That
Right.
I have made mistakes.
Right. Right. Just if only Debbie could just be the person who would be like, "Oh, you," yeah, and so that's the thing that always bothered me about relationships just in general, when
Hmm.
girls or guys, men or women, couldn't accept the fact that your partner had a life before you. And so then you'd get all in your head, create your own story and narrative without
Yeah.
talking to somebody. I hate that shit. I had a friend that would do that with her boyfriend all the time. And it was like, And so then I would come in with something logical and reasonable, like, oh, I think
Mhm.
it's probably because of this, because I've been single for a long,
Yeah.
long time. And so, and no, I don't think that's it. And then she'd finally get emotional enough to have a meltdown. And then they'd talk about it because he's like, why are you crying
What?
right
Why?
now? What did I do? And then she tells him, and he's like, no, if you had just asked, this is the answer. And I was like, and then it would turn out I was fucking
Yeah.
right. But she would create this story in her head about everything instead of talking to him about it. And it's so infuriating that that kind of shit happens. And I think that's another reason why that scene between Jimmy and Louise is so beautiful, because she's realizing, like, oh,
Yeah. Like, I've had 65 conversations with Jimmy this past week, and 55 of them were in my own head.
uh-huh,
And
yep,
and it works both ways too, because 65% of the conversations that men have had with me have been in their own head.
yeah.
And then here I am sitting in an Olive Garden vibing with my breadsticks,
The all you can eat breast.
my all you can eat breadsticks. Oh, because when I'm there, I'm family. And
It's very Italian, so
I'm,
I'm glad
I'm
they're
just
staying on brand with my people.
I'm just trying to be at Olive Garden with that good salad dressing. And you're literally, and I've said whatever the triggering word was that like we had a fight about that I wasn't present to earlier. And then you're giving me the silent treatment. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, hi. I'm just trying to really like enjoy my spaghetti carbonara, even though we are at Olive Garden and it's greasy as fuck. So I'm like literally mopping it up with my free breadsticks.
Yeah.
And I would just like to know why you are secretly mad at me. And then it's the double down, right? It's the I'm not mad. I wish you could see your face right now in this motherfucking Olive Garden, and I might put you on blast on TikTok over it. Like,
Right.
and people just like, and I don't, I mean, it was the 50s. We're going to go see Don't Worry, Darling, and we're going to figure out where we all decided that it was better to conceal Don't Feel. It wasn't Elsa, it was the 50s.
Well, and that's the other part of it too. Like, it took me a long time to learn that when I'm not ready to talk, rather than saying I'm fine, I say I'm not ready, but I will let you know when I'm ready.
No, I
Because,
haven't
you know,
processed this yet.
yeah, I'm in the process of breaking down. I'm debriefing internally how I feel, and I don't know how to articulate it. Like, we don't create that culture for
No,
that, because you do have situations where poor Thelma has been trying to articulate what she wants her entire fucking life, apparently, because they started dating at 14, and
14.
he's shooting her down constantly, creating self-doubt, creating lack of worth on purpose to keep her in her place so he can do whatever the hell he wants and still maintain his image. And so then you create this environment where we just don't feel like we can talk because there's no validity to it, and we don't learn the language, and we don't allow ourselves spaces to have the language to say, I'm upset, but I can't talk about it right now.
Well, and like, and we're always talking about how millennials did the work so the Gen Z could fly. Like,
Right.
we watched our mothers, our aunts, our grandmothers basically be told to quiet down.
Yep.
Like, I have sat in a room with my mother, my aunts, my grandmother, whatever, and I have watched them express a need and for
Mhm.
it to just leave into the ether
Mhm.
while it got ignored and floated away and then just floated out of reach for anyone to help fucking with.
Right.
And what it does, and again, this is why like parenting and paying attention to how you're speaking to people in front of your kids so fucking important, because what
Mhm.
it paints in my head is no one's going to take care of my needs but myself. I'm not important enough to care about. People got stress, people got guilt, people got a job, people
Mhm.
like they're messy and I got to do what I got to do to survive.
Yeah. Yeah. What's really frustrating, one of the things that I think the movie really highlights well, is how what's the word I'm looking for? Harvey Keitel's character is like, to me he seemed genuine, right? Like he genuinely sees that this is a fluke. They're actually truly harmless women.
Or
You know,
are
all
those
the
cop games?
I'm choosing to believe that because in the end when he's like, why all this heavy
Yeah.
artillery for chasing these women? This is ridiculous. Like he's basically calling out this guy for calling in fucking snipers to take
Mhm.
out these two women who literally have well, we don't know what Louise's deal is, but Thelma's an innocent essentially
Yeah.
prior to this. And so, oh my God, where did my train go? So bad.
You thought the cop was genuine, and I was
Oh,
like, we don't trust cops.
yeah, and so I'm thinking so what the movie I think does really well is kind of show like regardless, like there's that delicate balance between like, oh, I'm so sad, like this thing happened, I'm crying, and men are uncomfortable, so they just cave. There's a delicate balance between that and they're armed and dangerous. So we need snipers and the helicopter and everybody. They're armed and dangerous. She's got a 30 fucking 38. Like,
He's the
no,
tiniest gun
I'm
I've ever
sorry.
seen.
A 38 compared to your sniper, the sniper's gonna win every time. You need to calm down.
So I think what the movie does greatly, if we are choosing to believe that the cop is a sympathetic character, I'm still
Just
not
the one, Harvey
still on the
Keitel.
fence. Um, the cop, that is how he will be referred to.
Oh
The
my
cop.
God, Natalie. Harvey
Um,
Keitel's an amazing actor. He's
no, I
not
love him.
okay.
I love him. I was so happy to see him. But then, hi, Joe.
She's now that we have an outside, she's like, you will open this door and let me outside. So that's what she wants. You keep talking while I let her out.
Okay. Are you gonna be able to hear me? Okay. So I think what the movie does beautifully is the foil between Gina Davis and Susan Sarandon and then the cop, and how the snowball gets away from you. Because we have all been on the top of a hill with a little clump of snow going, damn, I lied to my husband. And then you make one more choice, and it's like, I lied to my husband, and then I continue to sex that man that I work with. And then it continues to snowball. And what the movie highlighted for me was there are all of these opportunities to sit back, breathe, and reassess your situation. And it happens with Thelma and Louise because all of a sudden, we killed a guy, now we're robbing people, now we're holding cops at gunpoint, all of it. But it happens with the cop too because he's like, okay, you know, this guy got shot at a bar. It is my job to figure out how that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he's convinced that he knows who it is, but then he also doesn't know how to pin it on them or get a hold of them because it's not like they had a cell phone to track.
Right.
Um,
Wiretapping or phone tapping.
Wiretapping. Then he has to call the FBI, and that's another evolution of the snowball getting out of his control. So
Yeah.
you're doing all of these things in panic because you think that that's what's going to get you the most control. But what it's doing is it's making that snowball bigger and faster down that
Mm-hmm.
hill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the whole time they're in that chase scene, again, I'm sitting there thinking, gosh, like, you know who could have helped mitigate Thelma's fucking husband?
Oh, Daryl.
Daryl could have said, my wife's not like this. You guys should maybe like dial it back.
I don't know who hurt Daryl, but they did a number on Daryl because Thelma was just chained to her microwave all day, every day. But for some reason, Daryl thought that, well, number one, Daryl was projecting his own behaviors onto Thelma.
Right.
So, like, Daryl was clearly either running around on Thelma or finding some reason to not
Oh,
be
he was
home.
100% running around on Thelma.
Yeah.
Remember when she said, I called him at 4 a.m. and he wasn't home?
Listen,
And then
sometimes,
she also makes that statement too, where it's like, oh, you're working late again? Like, that's so weird that people be buying cars so late on a Friday. I don't understand.
listen,
Girl's not afraid to call you out in the nicest way. Like, that's the
listen.
extent of what she'll do.
Sometimes people are still gambling at 4 a.m. We all got vices.
Yeah.
So he's projecting all of the shittiness that lives into his soul onto Thelma because that's what abusers like to do. They like to make you out to be the person who can't be trusted and the
Yeah.
person who's actually doing the majority of the hurting because it just wipes you out at the bottom to have any sort of ledge to stand on. When
Yeah.
you're like, hey, I don't think it's nice that you're dating women behind my back, then all of a sudden they've got a laundry list of
Yeah.
things that they've made up about you because you went out to dinner with Louise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, I felt bad when Jimmy got tricked into telling them about Mexico. I was like, Jimmy, that's
Wait,
what.
you mean JD? JD's the one that told me about Mexico.
Oh, I heard Jimmy. Like, I heard that they had gone to Jimmy's house. No,
Mhm.
Jimmy ID'd JD
Jimmy
is what
ID'd
happened.
Jimmy ID'd
And,
JD, and then JD's the one who was like, they're
yeah.
probably going to Mexico.
And I was like, Jimmy, you don't get involved at all. That's why we call our mamas and our unhinged aunts because we know I'll look at whatever picture you want me to look at, but I'm not getting involved. I don't know these people. I don't know you. I don't know these people in your mugshots. I've never met Brad Pitt one day in my life.
That's an interesting thing too, because on the one hand, it's like saying something could be the difference. So that's the balance, right? Like you say something when someone's been kidnapped or taken, but you
Hmm.
keep your mouth shut when it comes to like a murder.
Yeah.
Well, but see, if it was the other way around, it was a bunch of dudes murdering a woman, I wouldn't keep my mouth shut. I don't think.
Right. Circumstances, everything. All of
Yeah,
my legal
circumstances,
advice is for
everything.
women and women only getting away with crimes. That's all my legal advice is. It's not for men. It's not for men to get away with the crimes that they commit against us. They already do.
Yeah.
I got one who's already living in my neighborhood again.
Oh. Something else that we didn't talk about that I think is a nice little frame parallel situation in the movie as well is the truck driver. He sort of
Oh,
represents
yeah.
all men in a way. P.S. People accused this movie of misandry.
Oh, of course they did because women were just living in the world and
Mhm.
observing how men treated them. And they're like, Misandry, don't you hold a mirror up to me. I love how this movie filmed men because even when an old man was just sitting there looking at you, you felt like it was the most lecherous old man that you had ever run into in your entire life. I'm like, I love how this is the perfect. I like to get hung up on the female gaze because I don't know what it looks like in film or literature compared to the male gaze because we don't see it very often. And then someone
Mhm.
tried to explain it to me in a very like in a sexual context.
Mm.
But I was like, no, this is the female gaze looking at every
Yeah.
man like he could literally tie you up and throw you in his truck. This is the female gaze.
And what's interesting is on Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous, we have this conversation all the time. Like a film written by a woman and directed by a man, there's always some sort of miss that happens. But in the case of Thelma and Louise, that's not true. Ridley Scott does an amazing
Yeah.
job directing this film. It's like first of all,
Or
it
did
was probably like
Susan and
5
Gina
years ago. Hold on, it
or
was like probably like 5 years ago when I realized it was a Ridley Scott film, which is kind of shitty because
it says
like,
it right in the first 10 seconds. I'm like,
uh-huh.
look at you, Ridley Scott.
Yeah, yeah,
I
it
haven't
does.
watched a Ridley
S-
one in a while.
Sometimes I don't pay attention to the opening credits. It's fine. Um, but he does it so masterfully that you forget that like so then it's like, okay, guys, why can't you tell female stories well then? Because if Ridley Scott can do it and win an Academy Award, why are the rest of you failing?
Listen, did Ridley Scott do it, or did Gina and Susan make it easy for him to do it?
Well, and then that becomes the combination of like you have the perfect pairing
Hmm.
because you have a director who I'm assuming, I don't
Hmm.
know. You have a director who understands how to work with his leading cast and just all of his cast, but his
Yeah.
leading roles, and then he's created an environment where you can be excel in what you do because I think we had this conversation. I don't know when we had this conversation, but in one
I'm,
of our
I'm
other
also trying
lives.
to think about it where it's like you had the best cast in the world and this is the trash that you
Yeah,
came up with.
because what happens is the director's always right. As an actor, at
Mhm.
least in theater, and we've had, and I can't remember which episode we talked about this on, but it was a Still Comfy episode. In theater, you don't go against what the director says.
It
The
was
director
probably A
says,
League of Their Own, where
yeah,
I said that Abby Jacobson is not getting notes. No one's giving Abby Jacobson notes because if they did, she'd be doing a better job.
yeah, the director has the final say. The director listens in theory to the producer. I don't know about television and film, but in
Yeah.
theater, that's how it works. The director tells the actors what to do. The actors do not necessarily have the freedom or flexibility you could challenge, but then that puts your career in jeopardy, yada, yada, yada. So when you have an environment like with the one I'm assuming Ridley Scott created, where you can have such star power used well and properly to execute the story and capture all the nuance that
Mhm.
Thelma and Louise captures, I'm again left with why can't the rest of these fools figure it out?
Because they don't want to. Because, like in the case of A League of Their Own, we just applaud lazy storytelling. I tried to have this conversation over the weekend because I was told I was wrong. And it was by a person who hasn't even watched that show that we talk about on Tuesdays. And she's like, I heard it was good. I'm like, so? I go, people are trained to like mediocrity. That's why Virgin River is going to last until I die.
Is it because the world is such a heinous dumpster fire, we just need something that's easy peasy breezy?
I miss impactive storytelling. I do. I like because for me that's what it is. It's the range of emotions and you're supposed to make me feel emotions. You know what? I'm going to say it. That Idris Elba movie, Beast, where he punches a CGI lion to save his kids. It was the most tense movie I've ever been at and they made it heartfelt somehow. I was like,
Wait, did you go see Beast?
I did on Saturday for $3 movie day. It
Oh,
was
see,
$3 movie day at every
yeah,
Cinemark.
yeah, yeah. Same
Cinemark,
at
you let me know when you want to sponsor me.
yeah.
I'm your girl.
I didn't realize I missed $3 movie day. I was really sad about it. But this is what happens when we don't talk on the weekends. I don't know
Listen,
what's happening in your life.
this is what happens every time my sister comes to visit. She comes to visit and we're sitting around, and there will be a stupid movie that is playing that we know that no one will sit in a movie theater for but us. And then one of us side eyes the other one. And they're like, so that ridiculous movie, right? Where like Idris Elba punches that lion in a face, right? Like that's gonna be so dumb. And then the other one goes, yeah, it probably is gonna be dumb, but like I wouldn't hate watching
I mean,
Idris
it's Idris
Elba
Elba.
punch a lion out of a car. And
Yeah.
then you sit there and you're like, so we're gonna go see the lion movie tomorrow, right? Like we did it with that movie that was shot on the iPhone where that woman gets admitted into the psych ward
Oh,
without her
uh-huh.
consent.
Yeah.
I forget what that movie was, but it changed us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. You're right though, because okay, so there's this fine line that's happening, right? Because like there's this conversation happening on, I think it's TikTok, where people are like, name a black movie within the last 10 years that didn't have a heavy-handed message about being black and what it's like to be black in America.
Beast.
And I was like, but
Punching
they're
a
not in
lion.
America.
Oh, they are in Africa.
Yeah, different.
And like there is this whole B plot about how like his wife came from the African village that they are in
Uh-huh.
and she done dead. And so like his kids hate him. And like he's just trying to connect with them in Africa
Let's go to your mother's roots
on
and see if her
safari.
spirit is
And then
here.
he's got to punch a
Lion.
CGI lion.
I wouldn't mind seeing Idris Elba is fine.
Honestly, and you know what? It makes my rule. It makes this movie is an hour and a half long, and therefore it will be perfect. It
Yeah,
will wrap
yeah.
up everything nicely, and
Nice.
it will do exactly what I need it to do.
There you go.
Oh, let's talk. Oh, hey, let's throw out the crawdads. People literally masturbated with that book on
That book was
TikTok. The
terrible.
goddamn crawdads. Like, oh, have you read where the crawdads sing? No, I haven't.
I
And they
have,
like,
and I wish I
it's
hadn't.
it's the book of our generation. So I went
No.
and I saw the movie because Taylor Swift slaps. And I wanted to see what petty feelings she put into song. Also, my air conditioning was broken, so I
Right,
had
I
reasons.
remember. Yeah.
So I went and saw the Crawdads. And I told Jules, I was like, I mean, I get it. I enjoyed it. The bayou's pretty. Everyone did a good job. It's a decent story. I go, but it's just To Kill a Mockingbird with a little white girl from the swamp. It didn't make me feel anything. I was never stressed out for her. Nothing. I was like, this is going to work out for you. You're fine.
Yeah, it was just a beautifully shot film with
Yeah. With
decent costumes.
gators. There were
Yeah.
gators in the Beast movie too. And you know, I'm more out of all the animals in the chain, I never want to look a gator in the eye because they're sneaky and they're fast.
That's how they survive.
They're
Like,
sneaky and they're fast.
uh-huh. I don't understand people who have them as pets. Like, that doesn't make
Right.
any sense to me. I don't get
Forget
it.
forget this unhinged lion that is trying to then seek vengeance on its
Yeah.
killed pride. I'm
Yeah.
worried about the gators because
Yeah.
I watched a gator eat a shark
No.
in Florida.
I'm cool. I'm good.
I've seen that YouTube video.
Yeah, we're good. I don't ever want to see that YouTube video. Please don't send it to me.
Seen a gator take down a shark.
No, I'm good. I'm not a fan. I do think that with like I personally feel that Thelma and Louise is, you know, what's the word I'm trying to say? You know, a lot of people praise it for being this like feminist iconic movie, all
Mhm.
these things, but what I think it really does is highlights just how hard it is to be a woman
Yeah. And I
when it
think
comes to wanting autonomy. You know, Susan Sarandon Louise, she has autonomy in some way, right? She's allowed to have a job. She clearly was running from something, all these things. But Thelma wants autonomy so bad, but she doesn't realize and know that she wants it until after that fateful night in the bar parking lot. And so here they are now trying to figure out how to exist in a way where they can still have
mhm,
this, you know, they can exist within this awakening, but then the world's like, you did something bad, and oh, if you had told us the truth, you'd probably still go to jail.
probably. Also, the thing about Louise and what it highlighted for me, it's what this world makes us give up
Hmm.
in order to be a woman with autonomy.
Yeah, and the thing that really is hard with that is, you know, the fact that it's how far would self-defense had gone,
Hmm.
really? Would anybody have believed that?
Probably not.
And that's the thing that's really sad, because then again, even in death, this situation still prevails and favors men.
Yeah. And I think for Louise and like, and back to like your friends marrying mediocre dudes and then you just having to watch. It's like Louise doesn't even have the like luxury to marry her mediocre dude Jimmy because like it then robs her of everything that she's built for herself.
Hmm.
And you and I talk about that a lot. It's one of the reasons why I don't want to have kids because it's like there's nothing that like robs women of their autonomy faster than motherhood in this
Yeah.
country.
Yeah, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's a solid 10 years that you're giving up for sure. And
Hmm.
then after that, it just kind of depends. Like in my situation, I think my child was like 10 or 11 when he started gaining a little bit of independence. And by independence, I mean like going to friends' houses because he had a
Driving
solid
cars.
group of friends that I didn't have to be at the Did you say
I said
driving?
driving cars, and then you just kept going. I was like, she's gonna let it lie, like she was letting her 10-year-old drive cars.
Oh my god, no. But, like, you know, now you're at the friend's house and I don't have to be there
Yeah.
because, like, I know the parents, we've exchanged, you know, we've had enough interactions where I feel like my child will not get shot in your home for some
Hmm.
reason, kind of stuff. And so you do get a little bit back there. And slowly and surely, it's what's hard right now for me to watch is, you know, people who overschedule their kids because then you're not getting anything back. You're just continuing that 10-year position of being
Hmm.
beholden to this little human who's dependent because you're their taxi. So you have to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday mornings do something with them every single day rather than allowing space to just be for stillness and quietness. And for me, that was the saving grace in parenting where it was just like, it's quiet time.
Hmm.
On Thursdays, we don't do anything. You be in your room, You tell me when you're ready for me to make dinner. And it's just,
And then I get stressed out when I watch mothers try to have autonomy. I didn't tell you this because we didn't talk this weekend because I had guests,
and I was
um,
moving.
and you were moving. But there was an 18-month-old in the Beast
At the
movie with
Beast
us,
movie?
and she was crying because the movie is stressful. And I was
Yeah.
like, I'm tense. Like,
I've seen that trailer every single time I've gone to
and
the
the
movies in the last 3 months, which is a lot. And
and
by the time we got to like the Crawdads movie, I was like,
mhm.
I can't with this trailer anymore. I will have a heart attack.
Like, number one, the lion, they made the lion look scary. And
Mm.
we went into the 5 o'clock movie and we were walking out. And like, I get it. You want to see a damn movie, and maybe you thought your kid would sleep through it, but movies are loud.
Hmm.
You're going to walk them up those stairs. Like, they can smell popcorn. We all love popcorn. You argued with them about the expensive popcorn. And then like, and they were late. So then they also have to fight through the people. So the kids started crying before they were even seated.
Oh,
And then you gotta walk out. And then they came back and the kids started crying again and again. I don't know what happened because these kids cry and then all of a sudden they're not. I'm like, would you smother that kid? What happened?
right.
I know that that's not how kids quiet down.
Yeah.
And I just felt, and I told my sister, I was like, I'm about to start going to 10 p.m. movies, but you know, it would still happen. So to
Hmm.
watch parents like try to have a little bit of autonomy over what they get to do and watching it still not be what you want to be doing because you just wanted to watch Idris Elba punch a lion and your kid's crying.
So do we just not hire babysitters anymore? Like, is that not a thing people do anymore? Do we just not trust people to watch our children anymore?
That has to be it. It had,
I don't know
that,
what I would have done.
listen,
Had 5 grandparents to access. And then, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. It's a totally different conversation. But when none of them were available, I did
you
hire
just,
people.
yeah. Well, and I was a street babysitter. I
Yeah.
babysat every kid that lived on my street.
Yeah.
And I would just like, who's going out this weekend? And sometimes it would be like, nope, you've got all of them. And we've agreed that you will be in this basement with
That,
all of them.
that's
And
happened
then
to me too. Hmm.
every parent is paying you something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like I would literally just like rotate and I would end up with all of them eventually because you'd play in the yard and then all of the gremlins would come.
Yeah.
They'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
are you? Natalie's got the good snacks.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's happened to babysitter culture. I have no idea. I have to imagine that people just don't have the disposable cash to pay people what it should actually cost. Because, like,
That's true. That's fair. Because if groceries are expensive, then
yeah,
hiring a babysitter is expensive
well,
too.
and so I was a babysitter in the early 2000s. Like, I graduated high school in 2007. I probably started babysitting when I was in seventh or eighth grade because they were all on the street. I didn't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that I probably made 25 to 30 bucks every night. And because it was literally just like what cash parents had on them, and you weren't
Right.
like, no one cared about minimum wage when you're 13.
Right.
So then I think the most I ever got paid was like 50 or 60 bucks, but that's because the parents didn't realize that they had double paid me. And then my mom went, why do you have this much money? I went, they double paid me because dad came home later than, or like earlier than mom, but like dad paid me beforehand because he knew that he was going to get rowdy and he couldn't count when he got home. And then mom came home early and she double paid me, and mom walked my money back over there. And hot mom was like, you double paid her. And they were like,
Oh,
yeah, but Natalie got one on us because we're morons. So just let her keep that money.
I would have
Because
just, yeah.
they were like the neighbors where like when you signed up to babysit for them, you were like, this could be till 1 a.m. This
Yeah.
could be till 4 a.m.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Those were
Uh,
the days.
but yeah, I don't know what's happened with babysitters.
That's interesting. I'd be curious. I should pool my friends with small children because, like I've mentioned many a times on my show, I had children 10 years before everybody
Yeah.
else did.
And
We never did we finish talking about the truck driver or did we digress?
we digressed into how he was a reflection of every man, but they shot every man like they were a potential threat.
Right,
And I
right.
loved that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the truck driver, like, just for me, it illustrated the escalation, right?
Mhm,
Because at
mhm.
first it's just like the wink and like the lewd, like jack off gesture
Yeah,
or something, and then
yeah,
he's screaming at you, and then like, and all of it.
yeah. Yeah, I agree, and then by the time they find they're like, "Hey, come follow us, wink,
Yeah,
wink," and he's like, "Hey, girl," and he's, like, pulling off his wedding ring and all
yeah.
this stuff, and then when they're like, "Do you think it's appropriate to talk to people like that? You're crazy." I'm sorry, a woman calling you out for talking to them like they're a sexual object only
Mhm.
on the planet for your wanton desire does not make her crazy.
I've only,
Also, can we stop just referring to women as crazy?
yeah,
Period. The end.
I,
Even if they have a diagnosis from a professional, we are not doing this anymore. It is not okay.
so, the one and only bar fight that I almost instigated. I was at the silent disco because silent disco is a safe place. It's my favorite way to club. You're all wearing your own headphones, having a singular experience together. No one
Mhm.
has ever touched me or said something gross to me at silent disco. But someone said something gross to my friend,
Uh-oh.
and he wouldn't leave, and he wanted her to leave with him, and she knew him. And like he came because he knew we would be there, and he was trying to get her to go with him and
Mm.
be like, blow off your friends, blah, 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 blah. And then he started talking to her nasty
Oh.
because he was accusing her of friend zoning him. And then I informed him that the friend zone was just an excuse that weak men use when they're too mediocre to date,
Yes.
but they think they've done all the groundwork because
Mhm.
you may or may not have gotten her a cup of water once.
Yeah.
So, um, so then he called me some slurs, um, that then they're the type of slurs that you use in reference to women who date women, because
Mm.
his go-to was, if you're calling me out for being nasty to your friend, you must not like dick at all or whatever. And he was like nasty to me. And then I just remember taking my little like wristlet purse and pivoting to my other friend who was with us, and I went, hold this.
It's
And she
Natalie's
went,
version of hold my beer.
and she went, do you need to take off your earrings? And I went, no. And I looked at him and I went, here's the thing. You can either walk away from this now and walk away of it, still walking like you could walk in, or else I'm going to take you out into this parking lot, or really right here, and I will beat you until your friends don't even recognize you. And you will have to call one of your bros to come and get you and tell them how hard I hit you. And he looked at me and I went, seriously, say one more thing to me or my friends. Because that's how we do it on mama's side of the family.
Mhm.
And he looked at me and he went, no, I'm going to go home. And I was like, right, because I'm scary.
I don't understand how we managed to create a world. We had nothing to do with it because we
No,
weren't allowed to vote until, well, my people weren't allowed to vote until 1964. Yours weren't allowed to vote until 1920, 1919.
nope. It's been about a
Um,
100 years.
yeah. So like how did society manage to evolve in a way where this is still here's what drives me crazy. On the one hand, my Black community,
Mm-hmm.
my folks on the Black side are constantly told, "That was so long ago.
Oh,
Slavery was so long
it was
ago.
so
Get
long
over
ago.
it." But then on the other hand, we can't we you wanna excuse horrible male behavior because that's how it's been for centuries. So
Centuries.
so do you see how I'm confused? Because these men in this film and in my opinion, there's two that are okay. Jimmy and the
Jimmy,
cop. You disagree about the cop, and that's fine. It's allowed. But it's like one of those moments in life when I'm just like, how is it that Jimmy is the only one who is evolved enough to not be like, these bitches be crazy?
right.
because your actions and behavior haven't driven me to a point where I can't take it anymore. Like, why isn't that acknowledged?
Well, and I remembered a point that I wanted to make at the beginning of this show.
Mm-hmm.
So I am a true crime, probably former fan at this point, to where like I can't live in it anymore. However, I am very aware of the difference that happens when men commit crimes and women commit crimes,
Mm-hmm.
and how we talk about when women commit crimes.
Yeah.
And first off, they'll tell you, well, according to studies, women only kill people for money. Now, I've watched a lot of Snapped.
I was going to say Snapped, the original true crime podcast.
But I will say that I think the difference is when I look at when women commit crimes and when men commit crimes is men will just commit crimes because they've had a feeling.
Mm. And they don't know how to deal with that feeling
Right,
because they're not allowed to be in touch with their
right.
feelings.
Women will commit crimes to solve a problem that they
Mm.
themselves did not account for.
Okay.
So Louise solved a problem.
Yeah, she sure did. She sure did.
And then when presented with another problem,
Thelma solved it.
Thelma solved it. And she solved another one when the cop was giving Louise a hard time and all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just like a difference between, but we're labeled the crazy ones. We're not killing anyone because we're angry or we're sad or we have cramps.
Like, or because we feel left out.
Right. It's literally just because like you hit us or you took our money or you were weird with our kid or any of it.
Yeah.
But men will look at you and be like, did you think highly of yourself for a fucking moment? And kill you.
Yeah.
And kill you.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, like, and that's that theory is strengthened by the way Harlan flips on Thelma.
I'm sorry, did you think that your body was your own? I believe I bought you not one but 3 drinks that I couldn't tell if it was laced because I can't tell when people started putting things in drinks. When did that start happening on the scene?
My first memory of being told to be mindful of my beverages, I think it was 16. So that was in 2000.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, if Thelma isn't somebody who, and first of all, liquor and beer hit bodies differently.
Correct.
So if she's not one who normally does a lot of alcohol consumption, that wild turkey with a Coke back gonna hit real hard. And when did they eat? So she's drinking on an empty stomach.
Yeah. Listen, I don't drink often, but when I do drink, it's a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually, man, I am not a fan. If you're not a fun drunk, we cannot drink together because I am I am loving and happy. I mean, I'm like that anyway, but like, it's just way more fun. Like, I'm just a joyful person.
Yeah.
And so when people are angry drunks, I'm just like, that's not a vibe we need. You need to be banned. Do not serve this person.
Goodbye. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, the narrative always seems to be flipped. My new favorite narrative that needs to be flipped is when a scientist came out and said, here's the thing. When women are on their periods, their body produces more testosterone. So when you're saying that they can't regulate their own emotions, they're too angry, what if they pressed a button or something because they are leaders? That means that no man should ever be a leader because they naturally have more testosterone than all of us. I was like, thank you, science.
Yeah. It's just, first of all, it breaks my heart that Thelma and Louise is still super relevant 31 years later. Like, that's like, we've got to do better. Ooh. We have got to do better. Secondly,
and by we, I mean them.
Yeah.
I can't do any more better. I made a podcast. I've got angry t-shirts. I guess all my friends.
It's more of a collective we rather than a you and I we, because we are doing work to sort of call out these egregious behaviors. You more so in the world of misogyny, mine more so in the world of race. Yeah. With that said, it is because I think so. so it came out in 91. So I wasn't allowed to watch rated R movies until I was 17. So I probably saw it in 2001.
Were you allowed to watch rated R movies that your parents wanted to watch, though? Because I wasn't allowed to watch Josie and the Pussycats because it was PG-13. However, I was allowed to sit through Waterworld.
So
So,
my mother has a strong no rated R rating rule. Yeah, for as
wow.
long as I can remember. And I forgot for a while because, when you don't live with your family and you
Yeah, because
don't
you're
do
a grown
things.
up.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, mommy, do you want to go see this movie with you? She's like, what's the rating? I was like, R. She's like, nope. I was like, what? She's like, I don't see rated R movies. And I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. But having seen this movie at 17, it kind of was like this moment of like, is this what I have to worry about? Like,
Yes.
because coming from a world and now I'm having a whole revelation
Revelation.
about my youth and but that's not the point. That's not this podcast, is not this episode. But it was this moment of like, men can be harmful. Like,
Right.
what? Because that wasn't necessarily the world I understood. Because now that I'm older and we have better language for it, I understand there are things that happened to me that were way more nuanced than what we see in Thelma and
Yeah.
Louise. But it was that little note of like, you need to be on your game, because they will
Right.
call you crazy if you try and say something happened to
And
you.
it is on you to be on your game.
Yeah.
Like, no one in this world is going to keep you safe. So
Right.
you better do it. Because
Right.
I also remember, not that she ever said it out loud, but the way that my mother would talk to me about assault or getting myself in trouble or any of it at a party, at the movie theater, anything was, you know better, you've been told better. Like,
Yeah, it's
you
always
better
on
make sure
you.
it doesn't happen.
And to an extent, it's like, yes, you control how much you handle yourself, right? Like, I had a
Mhm.
conversation with a friend a couple months ago, I don't know what it's time. And she was at a party and she had said, don't let me, she told somebody, she's like, don't let me get too drunk. And he's like, you're the only one in control of that.
Right.
Fair. Like, that
Fair.
is a fair point. But there is a point too. I had another friend another time, she had a drink at a wedding and was pretty much knocked out, and everyone's like, that's strange. And I was like, you were probably drugged, because
Mhm.
you have a very high alcohol tolerance.
Mhm.
The amount of alcohol you consume, you had a glass of wine and you were drugged. You were
Yeah.
100% drugged. But nobody wanted to acknowledge that, whatever. So there's like a level, again, it's the nuances, it's the balance, it's the circumstances, and I think that Thelma and Louise really brings all of that to light.
Yeah. I had a friend one time pretend like he was going to slip something in my drink to the bartender, and I was standing there. So my friend thought that that joke was going to land,
No.
but he made the joke like, I'm going to put something in it, so she's nicer. And the bartender laughed, and I looked at him and I went, I realized that my buddy was making a really poor joke, and I will scream at him later about it. I go, but as a bartender who is handling women's drinks all day, every day, I would hope that you would take that a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, because what if your friend wasn't joking? What if your
Right,
friend wasn't actually a good person and you didn't know it yet? Because sometimes it takes time.
right. Because sometimes the killer is across the table. That's what Jonathan Groff told me on Audible.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So don't trust your bartenders either.
At least not in the Midwest. I don't know.
In the Midwest.
That last scene, the chase scene, that's the most iconic scene
Yeah.
of ever. Like,
Where they
that is.
launched themselves off of a canyon,
Mm-hmm.
which I also
Mm-hmm.
felt was an over dramatization. I was like, I get it, because we want to be free, but free don't mean to be. Is free, is dead the only way women can be free of
Apparently.
men?
Apparently. Which is really
Mm-mm.
upsetting. So here's my final question. How comfy are you with this movie?
Oh, this fucking movie rocks. This fucking movie rocks. And it's because it's still so timely. So it's one of
Mhm.
those movies from the 90s where you can watch it and you go, I've been Thelma and I've been Louise. And it's a drag being both of them.
Mhm.
And it's still a drag to be Thelma or Louise, and it's still something that we need to be actively talking about. So this movie should be taught in film theory, in fucking psych courses, in social work courses. Fucking make your kids watch this movie.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I think I'm gonna force my child. I was like, oh, maybe we'll go to the movies when he comes home. No, I think I'm gonna make him watch this movie. I
It's a
think he
very
needs to
white
watch
movie,
it.
but they're in the South.
Yeah, Arkansas. I mean, parts of Arkansas, sure.
The one African American man is smoking weed.
Yeah, and listening to what was that reggae music? I was
Yeah,
like,
and
okay,
hot outside the car.
1991.
I was like, look at that.
1991. I
19.
also am so because I've seen this movie so many times and been watching it basically my entire adult life. I am still very comfy with this movie, but I'm also very disappointed that you could literally, you know, take away the bad 90s fashion because there's some styles in the movie like towards the end especially where you're just like I'm sorry is this being filmed right now, but
Yep.
like her frilly bikini and things like that,
Yeah,
it's like you could take those things out and it would still like you could drop this movie into 2022
it
and
could.
not change a fucking thing
Not a
other
word.
than the black guy smoking weed pulling up to the cop like that.
I mean,
That's
maybe.
probably the only thing that would change, but you could drop it into 2022 and it would be
Right.
exactly as it is, word for word, verbatim, and it would still fly.
So what you're saying is you're comfy with the movie. You're not comfy with the year of our Lord Savior 2022.
I guess so.
Right. Is that truly the message of this show? It's like, hey, watch what you watch. But we're not living in comfy times.
No, we are not. We are not. And it's so upsetting
It's
because
so
it's like
upsetting.
I would like to not be worried about walking my dog
Yep.
or, little things like that. I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know. I had somebody tell me, I'm so relieved that you're moving into that neighborhood. We feel so much better. Your neighborhood will be so much safer. And I was like, this neighborhood isn't any safer than my last neighborhood. At least in my last neighborhood, the drug dealers made sure nobody stole shit out of my fucking yard.
Boom. Boom.
Like, oh, thank you for showing me your colors on how you feel about unhoused people.
Oh, and kids, I guess the true moral of tonight's show is get to know your local criminals and build a bond with them. If
Do
they
you
look
ever
out for you, we look out for them.
honestly, like, so we had when we first moved into that neighborhood I just moved out of, we were riding our bikes because we were near the trail and it was so lovely. And this guy's just kind of hanging behind and me and my kid at the time. And I was just like, okay, that's weird. So he had to have been like 8. Yeah, because he was 8 when we moved in. So he had to have been like 8. And I'm like, this is strange because I've been trained my whole life to be aware of my surroundings because we were beautiful children. And it was always a very big concern of my parents that we would get stolen.
Well, as you
And
know, I
so
was too ugly to kidnap.
And so we're riding along, and a couple weeks later, whatever, we're at National Night Out, and the house across the street, which a lot of people like to shake their heads at, but you know what? They don't fucking hurt anybody. I mean,
No,
have people overdosed on the shit they've sold them? Probably, but
no.
they're not hurting me, which is a bad attitude to have. Anyway, so I'm talking about it at National Night Out, and they're there, and one of the guys was like, "The next time that happens, you ride your bike to my house, and I will handle it."
Yeah,
I'm new to the neighborhood. I don't know this guy. And since then, no one's fucked with us.
at all. Get to know your local friendly criminal.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, what are the drug laws anyway, right? Like in California, marijuana is legal now, so I'm kind of like, whatever, smoke your pot. Like
Smoke your pot, sell your pot, make your brownies.
and in my county, you can only have 6 plants for home use. And I'm like, does it even matter how many they have? Like people complain about the smell. And I'm like, I can't tell the difference between that and a skunk. So it's fine. Just do you. Don't
Just do
get my house
you.
raided. I don't care.
But yeah. I do love when a stranger will be like, don't let people be creepy to you because I'll get violent. And in a lot of people's lives, that's me, where
Yeah.
I'm like, you need someone to get violent. And they're like, no, I don't really think that I need someone to get violent. I'm like,
Yeah.
because I'll fucking get violent.
But it was I guess it was like comforting too to know, like, he's basically telling me you do not have to be a single woman in this world and feel unsafe. Like, that's what
There
he's
it is.
telling me.
There it is.
Without, not in those words. And we need more of that. We
We
need
need
more
more of that.
people to be less the I'm going to follow you because I think I'm going to steal you, and more of the hey, don't be a fucking asshole
Yeah.
making people feel creeped out.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway.
Friend, please tell everybody where they can find you if they want to keep up with you online.
Hi, I'm Natalie Katona. I'm the host of To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. This week on Thursday, we will be releasing an episode about Annie C, a great friend of mine in the podcast, and I talking about reality TV and how it reflects the hellscape that we're living in.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, me and Caroline Addington from the Co-Create podcast talked about enlightened men and the ones that try really, really hard to convince you that they're an ally. No, they're not. They just read a book or a meme that they're commenting to you. And then I sell bracelets now on Etsy at No Niche for Nat. You can't really see them. Go online. And we have merch. We have Halloween merch. So if you're thinking, hey, it's spooky season and I want to celebrate, but I still want to express how angry I am at the year 2022, I got you. We got t-shirts that say always screaming about misogyny. My past relationships still haunt me. The patriarchy is scarier than Freddy Krueger. Did you know? And those are at the To All the Men I've Tolerated Before merch shop and on the Etsy shop. So follow me at Men I've Tolerated Pod, and I'll get you every link you could ever ask for.
Well, that's good. I'm very excited about your merch. I can't wait for payday so I can buy something. Like,
Yep,
the patriarchy is scarier than Freddy Krueger.
it is.
Because it is.
Because the patriarchy is around while I'm asleep and while I'm awake. Freddy Krueger is only around when I'm asleep, and I don't sleep. So
The odds are pretty good there. Friends, you know where to find us. Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous, wherever you find your podcasts. We are in rebroadcast mode, summer rebroadcast mode, which is actually going to seep a little bit into fall because I've moved. So I need to find all the things that I actually record on and all the things that I've recorded on so I can put all the episodes together because somebody thought it was a good idea to move with unfinished products.
with unfinished product.
Yeah. This week, what's rebroadcasting this week? Probably one of these Still Comfies. I don't know which one. It's been a long road, but follow us on the gram. Follow us on the TikToks. We just want to have those conversations with you. And if you've seen Thelma and Louise, oh, Natalie, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Just don't forget to have me plug the next movie.
Oh yeah, tell us what's up next on the Still Comfy.
So, 2 weeks from now, I'm not going to do math. That's stupid. The 19th, that sounds right. On the 19th, we'll be on the To All the Men I've Tolerated Before YouTube channel. So give it a follow. And we will be honoring Brendan Fraser for crying because he's so overwhelmed with how much people adore him and the Whale movie, not by watching The Whale, but by watching my favorite Brendan Fraser, George of the Jungle, because he's a treasure and he's never done anything wrong.
No, my favorite Brendan Fraser movie is Encino Man.
But we will be watching George of the Jungle.
Yes, but we need you to also watch Encino Man, Natalie. It's such a great film.
Yes,
and right now on our Tuesday night Still Comfy live show over on Instagram, we are talking about A League of Their Own. We are in episodes 5 and 6 next tomorrow.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And if you really want to listen to Natalie be upset about
just go
something,
off.
you need.
I don't know what this show has done to me personally, but I've been told that other people think that it's adequate storytelling, and I'm like, and yet I'm bored the entire time, and then I'm just irritated that I'm bored, so I mock Abby Jacobson.
You know, it's okay. I think, to criticize things. I think a lot of people get blinded by the fact that it is a full queer cast, which is very exciting. We don't see
It
that
is
a
very
lot.
exciting.
With that said, it's not a pass.
As a member of the queer community, I love that we have a full queer cast on Amazon Prime. I just wish that they were being allowed to shine, and that their characters were given depth, and that the stories that they were telling moved me instead of made me go, come on.
Yeah. Friends, do all the follows, listen to all the shows. We are so excited you're here and that you tuned in tonight. And if you're listening to the replay, we appreciate you for taking the time to listen to the replay. You heard it here first, 2 weeks. We are talking on Natalie's YouTube. And after we finish A League of Their Own on Tuesday, Still Comfies, we're going back to
the River Court. We're doing One Tree Hill season 2. I can't wait to be back on the River Court. Yeah. I can't wait to be shown basketball, but that's not what's important about that show. That's not
what the show's about anymore.
Chad Michael Murray, I miss you brooding all over my TV. Yeah. I miss Dan Scott not blinking at me.
His one suit that he wears all the time.
His one suit. Love the suit. Shout out to the suit. I miss Haley and her brain. Fuck, I even miss Peyton and her angst. But most importantly, I miss you, Brooke Davis. You're an inspiration, and you're the reason why I'm the woman I am today. That and Chelsea Handler.
Yeah. All right, friends, you know what to do. Until next time, we'll see you in the DMs.
See you in the DMs. And stay cozy out there. Stay comfy. Stay watching your bullshit. But also realize that 2022 is a scary place.
I was like, is Natalie not going to tell everyone to stay comfy? Like, that's how we end the show.
Stay cozy. I don't know. I'm a wreck tonight.
It's hard. Life's been hard. Okay.
Also, this show didn't have a song. The movie didn't have a song for me to sing. Should I just go back into Elvis?
No. Oh, no. Did you listen to... Listen, stop it. Did you listen to the Celebrity Book Club Priscilla episode?
I haven't. No, my favorite Celebrity Book Club has been June Diane Raphael talking about the Tori spelling.
Oh my God, that episode is so good.
And now I think I'm going to have to read that book.
I know. I thought the same thing. I was like, shit, am I going to have to read this book now?
I have to read this book that Tori Spelling wrote.
You're gonna die. When you listen to the episode about Priscilla Presley, you need to immediately voice memo me because oh my God.
I would love for the Celebrity Book Club episode to launch a murder investigation into Aaron Spelling's death. That's what I'm manifesting for the end of this episode.
Yeah. That episode was so good.
June Diane Raphael, I know you're listening. You and Jane Fonda, go ahead and tell her, no, she's not listening. You and Jane are the reason that I'm going to be the woman I'll become.
I forgot that she did Bridesmaids, not Bridesmaids, Bride Wars.
Bride Wars.
So after I listened to the episode, because I listened to it on my drive home from LA, I was like, you know what I'm going to watch tonight? Bride Wars.
We need to do a Monster-in-Law movie, and we need to talk about how we were all lied to about Jane Fonda.
Oh my God. See, I don't feel lied to about, well, that's not entirely true. My family did try to feed the propaganda to me about Jane Fonda because they are the same age, like similarly aged. But I never bought it. I knew she was a real one.
I had my mother, Hot Mom, and another mother of the woman I went to see Monster-in-Law with. They both screamed at us. And we didn't know who Jane Fonda was. We just knew that J-Lo was in a movie, and we saw every J-Lo movie.
Oh my God. I've known who Jane Fonda was my whole life.
No, I've never seen Barbarella. Is that the Jane Fonda movie?
I see. I'm thinking of on like the one I know her best from is On Golden Pond.
I've never seen On Golden Pond.
Oh my God. Her dad, did he win an Academy Award for that movie?
I find old people boring.
Oh my God, Natalie, one day you will be old.
I won't. Look at the state of the world. I won't be old. And I've always known it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we already did the closeout. We got to end and take this to the DMs.
All right.
Talk to you soon, friend.
Bye.
Bye.